I'm Jennifer Gilmore and I'm an author and advocate for women in abusive relationships. I want to get to the answers to the questions that many have from those that work in the domestic abuse sector, getting an inside feel of what it's really like in their job role and sharing it with all of you. Hi everyone, welcome to the next episode of #Abuse Talk Interviews, and I have to say Happy New Year because it is January, even though right now we're ready for Christmas next week. So I'm with Dawn Patrick, and she's a financial advisor, and we're going to be talking all about how a financial advisor could help us in situations maybe coming out of an abusive relationship. And we've got a ton of questions to get through from everybody, so thank you to anyone who gave a question. But first, Dawn, can you just tell us a bit about you and your job role?
Yes, so I started as an office junior when I was 19. Didn't particularly intend to go into financial planning. It was one of those accidental careers. I spent my time sort of building up my knowledge, became an underwriter, and then progressed through to being a manager by the time I was 25. Then motherhood came along, everything changed, and now I run my own business. I work from home, and I do the same thing but just in a different way. So I give independent financial advice on a wide range of things, from wealth management to protecting your family to sorting out your credit file. It's very diverse.
It does sound like it. And
yeah.
I suppose when I first met you, we were both talking about maybe the perception of a financial advisor, and even for me, I would have thought that's for the more wealthy side of the scale. So I'm guessing that's one of the myths, but do you have any myths in general other than that one about financial advisors?
Oh, absolutely. There's so many different misconceptions about what financial advisors do, and I guess you're right, a lot of people do make the assumption that if you've got money, that's when you come to a financial advisor. And I think one of the things I was saying when we first met is actually you do need an advisor before that, right at the beginning, so that you can do things like get your savings ready to be able to buy a property or clean up your credit file and things like that. So that is one of the myths, is that we are for wealthy people. I think one of the other things is the industry has had quite a lot of bashing over the last probably the last decade really, and there was a bit of kind of blurring between what an advisor was and what a salesperson was, and the regulator has done a massive amount of work over the last, I'd say at least the last 5 years, to clean up the industry. And you have to have a higher level of qualifications, so it's less about the old school salespeople that you might have seen 10 years ago, and more about giving best advice, starting with a client, like you say, when they're in the build phase of building up their money or not quite got enough money to make ends meet, right through to all the different life stages and working with them for life rather than coming in and delivering a product. So,
right.
Yeah.
And so I guess following on from that, how would somebody that hasn't got, how would somebody afford that service? Or is there how does that work?
Yeah, of course, because a lot of the time it does come down to people thinking, oh gosh, it's going to cost me a lot of money. But when you are talking to an advisor initially, usually it's at the cost of the advisor, because we don't know what you're going to need help with, so we can't put a charge on that.
Right.
So certainly the way I work is you first sit down with me where we go through what your wants and needs are. There wouldn't be a charge involved. So the only time that we would be charging you is if there is work involved that is going to be a lot of our time and cost. But what we do is we'll tell you exactly what that cost is going to be before we do it. So what I would say is, if you are thinking I could do with some advice, or I could do with getting some information on a certain subject, go and have that initial chat and find out a bit more about it. In a lot of cases, when you're talking about things like protection, you don't pay for that service at all anyway, because we are paid by the product providers.
Right.
So it's case by case, but I would say don't be scared of it being a lot of money. Yeah.
Okay, well, obviously everybody that's listening, sort of generally our interest is domestic abuse.
Yes.
And with that, we have financial abuse. And so we're wondering if you've helped anybody that's been in that kind of situation, in maybe in an abusive relationship, and had that financial strain.
Yeah, so what a lot of people don't realise is that when you work in the banks and building societies, we do get a lot of training around vulnerable clients, spotting signs of financial abuse, and the Modern Slavery Act, which is quite a big thing that was, you know, on the radar for us to look out for. So when you are going in and, you know, using your bank and things like that, there are people available there that have training on spotting the signs. Going to your question of have I helped anybody, when I was a junior working at a small building society, I had a lady who made a comment to me that this was her running away fund. And she was actually quite serious about it, and she was on her own in the branch at that time, and we were able to put an alert on her account that would pop up on the screen when she came in, because she didn't want that money disclosing or discussing in front of the husband. She wanted to make sure that he didn't know about that money, because ultimately she was going to use that money as her, you know, she made light of it, but she called it a running away fund. So we were able to, when we were serving her, it would come up on the screen, only we could see it, so that if he was there with her, we wouldn't say, you know, do you want to review your savings rate or something like that. Yeah, so I've dealt with it a lot of times in a lot of different scenarios. I guess the thing I see more at this end of the scale with the job that I do now is people come to me in the aftermath of it, which is a little bit late really to fix the problem. So we'll see people 2 or 3 years down the line when they may be in a new relationship, or they've moved out of the property, the home that they had together, and they're in the fixing phase of trying to repair the damage that has been done.
I mean, I have to say, even the I mean, I've been in that place where I had a joint account, and that was a big issue, because obviously it's going to affect my credit rating if he's spending in that overdraft. And thankfully, after a while, the banks actually listened, and you know, they were able to freeze the account, and he was paying money into that account. And then once it got to a certain point, he obviously realised then about the account, and that had frozen it, but he'd spent the money I'd put into for it to be shut down. So I had to build it back up, and then I still paid, I think it was £200 excess. Didn't want to pay it, but the banks agreed that if I paid that money, they would shut it, even though they don't have his signature, which I think is very rare. And it was a bit of a fight to get that, but I think they understood, you know, the situations, and I think sometimes people don't realise that they can actually go to the banks and have those kinds of conversations.
That's right.
And even if it's, you know, assistance by you, where you know, even talking to the right people is quite difficult.
Absolutely.
So we have been given quite a lot of in-depth questions, and the first one is quite short, but with probably a big answer. And obviously these are all personal questions, and they've been anonymised, so we'll try and pick our way through them. But the first question is, can we spot the initial indicators of financial coercive control?
So it's quite a difficult one. Like you say, there is quite a broad answer to that, and we've also got to be careful that we're not misconcepting what's going on here. So there's a lot of different signs that could indicate it, but obviously would need further investigation before anything comes to light. But it might be something like, for example, 2 people have got a joint account, but there's only 1 card active on the account. So for me as an advisor, or for people working in the banks or building societies, that could be an indicator. You know, there's 2 wages coming in, but there's only 1 person always drawing the money. There's only 1 active card. There could be things like if somebody is being made to account for every penny that they spend, but it's their own money. So that might indicate that somebody is controlling their money if they're having to account for every penny. So that could obviously put a little flag up there. Use of partner details is quite a big one as well. So it might be that there are credit cards and things being used by one partner that are in the name of the other partner, and they're not aware of it, so they're running up, like you say, running up their credit without them being aware of it, because that can have long-term lasting effects on the other partner. And other things like, for example, they seem to be working a lot of hours and they've got quite a good income coming in, but they're never allowed to buy anything for themselves, but the other partner's dressed head to toe, you know, in nice things, or little things like never having any cash to hand.
Yeah.
So there's so many signs that could be an indication, but would obviously need a little bit more investigation around them.
Yeah, it's quite difficult, but even like the first things that you said there on how it would be alerted to even you, that kind of, I don't know, is quite reassuring, because I guess for me on the side of being in that situation, you kind of feel quite isolated.
Yes.
And so you do need somebody to be able to maybe recognise a sign or that indicator. So thank you for that. So where could we go for advice regarding financial abuse then?
Yeah, so there is quite a lot of information out there, and it's kind of sifting through it and getting something that's going to be useful to the person that's reading it. I think the Money Advice Service is brilliant at doing this, because they do have specific pages for financial abuse, and spotting the signs, or what to do if you are in that situation, because like you say, you could be feeling isolated, but might be able to find some time to look it up on the internet, but not necessarily go and physically talk to a person without the other partner there. There are charities out there that can help you as well. If it's safe to do so, you can start reporting it with the police so that they have a record, because I think it's really important, even if you're just at that stage where you're thinking, this is getting, you know, a little bit controlling, but I'm not sure where this is going to go. By logging it with the police, it is a criminal offence. So if they have got a record of this going on, then there is you know, a backlog of what we're looking at if the situation does escalate. A family law solicitor or an independent financial advisor, like myself, can also help you in getting the advice and the information that you need to be able to get yourself free from it.
Right, thank you for that. I think I've actually seen the Money Advice, because they did and I've also seen, I think it was, is that the same as Martin Lewis, or is he separate?
Yes.
Yeah, because they did a massive blog post about it. I think it was only a few months ago, and I found it really interesting that they'd taken on board not just professionals or charities and organisations, but they actually listened to the readers and the people that interact and engage.
Yes.
So I did find that quite interesting. So this is a quite personal question. I don't know if there is a specific field, but it would be helpful to know what support is available for those who had to leave their jobs and go on benefits because of the abuse, or because of being dragged through family court system, or even just any advice to anyone in that position. You know, what can they do to ensure they're not going to be totally financially devastated by it?
So not everybody knows this, but there are lone parent support workers out there. You don't necessarily need to be a lone parent to get the support. It could just be, you know, a single person that, like you say, has gone through a situation that has taken them away from their job because they've not been able to be in work, and for various different reasons. A lone parent support worker, I don't know particularly in the Hull area, but I know in our area we have a company called Aspire iGen. I think there is one in Hull.
Right.
And they have the lone support workers based there. What they can help you do is redo your CV to kind of, you know, you've had this period off work, but explain it to in a way that that's going to be positive to the employer, you know, so that you can almost rewrite your history in an understandable and professional way. So they can help you to do that. What they also do is help you to access, like you say, if they have needed to be on benefits, there might be grants available if you're needing to buy clothes to go to a job interview, or just the travel costs to get to a job interview, to get yourself, you know, there and smart, and you haven't had to walk 20 miles or whatever. So definitely do have a look at going into somewhere like the Careers Advice Service and speaking to a lone parent support worker.
Yeah, I hadn't even considered or thought about that, so thank you for that. So I'm finding this very interesting, actually.
Good.
Actually, I've learnt a lot already, so thank you. So another question, obviously another personal one. My ex was lead name on a holiday 3 years ago when I was seriously ill. I have a claim, but they will only make compensation payable to my ex, who is the lead name on the booking. I've asked for vouchers to offset against her holiday, but again, they will be in his name. I've asked it to be a cheque, so it's in joint names, and still, because they still have a joint account basically,
Right,
and until the house sale goes through. So they've refused. So how would she get around this?
Okay.
And because she's a bit worried that he's going to cash the compensation,
Right.
basically.
Yeah, it's a really, really difficult one, because when you, it's going to depend on the terms of the contract that the holiday was booked under, so there's going to be a lot of print to read through, and it might be that you need to speak to a legal advisor, or maybe the travel regulator, or even just go and speak to a travel agent about the terms of the booking. But usually when you have a lead name on a holiday, you are giving them permission to be the lead person in terms of paying for the holiday and also receiving any monies back. So it might be a really, really difficult one to overcome. But I would definitely, first of all, make the complaint to the travel agent, which they may or may not uphold, and be completely honest about the reasons behind it. Make sure it's in writing, because then you've got your record, and they will need to respond to that. And then once you get that response, if you are not happy with that response, at least you've given them the chance, first of all, to tell you that they're not going to do what you've asked them to do. Then you can take it up with, they will give you the details of who you need to go to, because it's going to depend who it's booked with, what the terms are, whether it was protected under certain schemes. Right. But your travel agent and your complaints process is going to be your first point of contact. Yes, yeah.
That's great. I think this is by the same person. So I have a joint mortgage with my ex and want to put it onto interest only. He's refused, so the bank have said no. I asked in the court for the judge to order it, but he said he cannot order, that. He asked if the judge would ask if his ex would agree, and he said no in the court. So my ex has made no mortgage payments for over 2 years, and it can be evidenced. She's obviously off sick and in a bit of a situation. House is up for sale, but he's trying to stop that sale as well by refusing to agree to any of the offers made. Is it financial abuse? She believes it is. And have you got any solutions or suggestions to that? And obviously there's quite a lot of information in there, but obviously that house is being used for some reason, as a way of a control, isn't it?
Yeah, a bit of leverage, isn't it? It's a really, really difficult one, because this does happen a lot, particularly where one partner remains in the home. And I think that my thoughts on that would be, first of all, checking the legal ownership of the property, because there are 2 different ways that a property can be owned, which is joint tenants or tenants in common. So again, it's a legal thing. And it would massively depend on what each party has got to gain from the sale of the property or to lose from transferring to the other partner. I can't give advice on this without knowing the full picture, but there are some options. For example, is it an option to sever the joint tenancy and come off the property altogether? Will you lose any money by doing that? Will equity be lost? So I guess a bit more information would be needed. I would suggest sitting down with a mortgage advisor or speaking to the legal team of the lender, because again, it's going to be the lender's decision on what you can do. Right. Yeah, but you can ask to speak to the legal team at the lender's office.
Right, okay, that's very interesting. Yeah. So another one to do with regarding a property. I need to sell the house again to pay for a court, but I'm so scared of selling again. Is there any help with it at all? Or the Builder to Buy Houses as Part X, or are there loans from the government? For anyone that are starting out again and need to repay back again in 5 years. I mean, there's a lot in that question as well. But I think it's quite an upsetting situation, isn't it? If you have to basically sell your house to pay for your court fees anyway. So do you know of any help or support in that situation?
I think it's really important to take each step at a time. So deal with first of all the sale of the property. the question around the Part X in the property is not going to solve the problem, because it won't allow you to take any money out. And usually when you Part X in, it means it's like when you do it with a car or something, you're going up a level, so you're ultimately going to end up with a bigger mortgage,
right.
Which may or may not fit your affordability. So Part X-ing probably wouldn't solve that problem.
Right, okay.
In answer to the question, there are lots of schemes available out there when you start again. So start with the first issue, which is the sale of the property and the paying of the court fees. Then move into your second phase, which is cleaning all of that up. So cleaning up the credit file if there's any damage, rebuilding any deposits if you've not had anything back out of the property.
Right.
And sometimes getting from where you are now to where you want to be can be a bit of a process, which is what I was saying about speaking to an advisor at the beginning, and they can guide you through that.
Yeah.
And then it might be by the time you've done those 2 steps and you get to the third step, which is the starting again step, you'll have already laid the foundations in terms of getting your deposit saved, and then your mortgage advisor will be able to tell you which of those schemes will benefit you, if any, because they're not always suitable for everybody. So step by step, one thing at a time, which is difficult when, if you're anything like me, you want to think ahead, where am I going to be this time next year kind of thing. But take it in smaller chunks.
Yeah, and I think it's like an overwhelm, isn't it? You can easily get overwhelmed in those situations, and to be honest, I wouldn't blame anybody, would you?
No.
And you do try and think, can I clear this, situation up in 10 years' time?
Yeah.
And originally in my head, I'd separated. It's been about 6 years now, and I think we've got like £1,000 worth of debt, which is manageable. But last year we became debt free for the first time, and so. It's like there is hope, isn't there?
Yes.
There is some hope.
That's right.
There.
I think sometimes people can get overwhelmed with the feeling of, I'm never going to get there.
Yeah.
But if you can sit down with somebody that can say to you, right, okay, this is your first step, and I've had feedback from clients that have said to me that I've seen them 2 years ago, and it's next year that they'll actually be getting on the property ladder, and they're like, if I hadn't have had those regular check-ins, and you saying to me, get yourself a Help to Buy ISA or whatever little tip that I gave them, they will then reach that goal. But it's them that's doing it, not me. I've just kind of said, here you go, this is how you can get there. But a little bit at a time.
But to be honest, it's really difficult to find all of that information. You can go on Google, you can have a look around, and you could be there for ages, but you have conflicts on websites, and then maybe it's not the right choice for you, because I think it's, websites might try and make it, obvious, or it's a bit like the law, isn't it? It's interpreted, and I think it is interpreted to your situation. It's very custom. So I would say that anybody that's given a question like that, they've obviously been very personal questions, that if they did want to, you would be able to direct them to anybody, or if they need anything, they could
like
get in
you
touch
say,
with you.
Don't spend hours and hours trawling through all of this information and trying to find yourself a plan. That's what the financial advisors are there for. And I certainly have no problem sitting down with somebody now knowing that they're not going to buy a house for 2 or 3 years, because I build up lifelong relationships with my clients. So if they come to me and say, my credit file's a mess, I don't have any deposit, I'm happy to sit down and say, right, okay, here's your steps of what we need to do. Let's check in and let's get you from here to here. And the time frame is in your control. No, that's perfect. So anybody that wants to hear more from Dawn on those questions, please get in touch with Dawn, and she'll be giving the information in a minute. Brilliant. So this question is actually my question to you. And my husband, it's about my husband's property. He wasn't in an abusive relationship, but it's very estranged relationship. So I've put, we have a court order to say my husband takes responsibility of the flat. He can take over the mortgage. However, the flat is in a negative equity, and so we can't get a transfer of equity into my husband's or our names jointly. The bank won't allow it. They still also have an issue with not having her signature. He has paid the mortgage solely for 5 years. She stopped paying her half, that way back then. Is there anything we can do, because we feel like the banks have kind of trapped us into a situation? So in that situation, there's no equity. So the ex-partner is not going to lose anything by ending the financial relationship with her ex-partner, your husband. So I would say speaking to the legal team about the options of severing the joint tenancy,
Right.
which would then put the control of the property into one person's name.
Right.
You've still got the issue of negative equity, which there's not going to be any quick fix on that. But I guess it would depend on what he wants ultimately to do with that property. So does he plan to hold on to it as an investment? Does he want rid of it? Whatever his goals are can then be achieved if he can get it under his own control. Whether the lender will agree to take ex-partner off the mortgage under the severing of the tenancy could also be an issue. There is a really helpful page on housing rights under the Money Advice Service, which will tell you what rights each person has, but it also tells you about legal ownership and the two different types, and how you can get legal advice on how to do that without, because there's no equity to transfer.
Yeah.
So that's why the bank is kind of saying can't do that because there's nothing to transfer, but it's not helping you resolve your situation.
No, it just makes it a bit tricky.
Absolutely. So again, speak to the lenders, not particularly the mortgage servicing department, but maybe somebody more on the legal side around the ownership type, and have a chat with a family legal solicitor around whether it's the right thing for him to do to request severing the tenancy, and whether ex-partner's willing to sign to do that. I would guess that as she's got nothing to gain by staying on there.
No, I mean, I think what might happen is in years to come, when she actually wants to get a mortgage, she'll probably realise that she's still on a mortgage. I don't think she actually knows, because of that court order that we've originally got, that she's still a part of it.
Yeah, I see.
And we're both self-employed, so then that becomes another factor into the difficulties of the situation.
Yes, because you've got the lender assesses the affordability of the remaining applicant. How is the property used at the moment?
At the moment, it's being let.
Right, okay. So
with the struggle, that was a struggle with the court order, but the solicitors managed to get it through. Otherwise, we would find it very difficult. We managed 2 years with it being stood empty.
Yeah, okay. So there may be some other options that a mortgage advisor can help you with, which I won't go into on because it's quite a long answer, but there is help available on that.
Okay.
But the first step is sorting out the legal ownership, and then the next step will be talking to a mortgage advisor about how that could potentially be held. There's possibility of the consent to lease or a buy-to-let. There's lots of options. Yeah. But again, get the advice to move it forward. Yeah.
No, well, thank you for that. So, how can people get in touch with you and if they need any advice then?
Okay, so I do write a page called The Money Academy, where I've posted a few videos with things like removing an ex-partner from your credit file, tidying up your credit file, giving yourself a regular financial health check. So you can add the Money Academy page or request the link. Jen can share my details with you, so you can give me a call or an email. If it's difficult for you to be able to do that, then I am happy for you to contact me via Facebook as well.
Yep, and I'll actually put all of the information in the description of this. So I always ask people, but for those that are listening, it's easier to get that information.
Yes.
So that leaves me to say thank you so much, Dawn, because some of those questions were quite, for me, or it might not be for you, but I was quite daunted, and I thought, oh my goodness, we're going into this interview and going through these really difficult situations. It's not really a simple answer, is it?
It's not, no, it never is.
So thank you so much. For those of you who are watching right now on YouTube, you can head over to #AbuseTalk on Twitter and carry on discussing domestic abuse, and we might make it a financial topic because we might as well carry on the conversation. So I'm going to say that now. We're going to discuss finances over on the Twitter chat. And it leaves me to just say a big thank you. The next interview, I don't know why I've got the wrong date on here. It's actually the first Wednesday of February. So whatever that date is, that's the next interview that goes out. So keep an eye on the pages, stay tuned, and thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Once again. I've really enjoyed it, and I've actually learned quite a lot, and I'm sure that viewers and listeners will have also taken something from this. It's such an important interview, so thank you so much, Dawn.
Thank you for having me.